Hello there, everybody. We'll just give another minute or so for the late arrivals, and then we'll get started with our webinar today. All right, I'm going to go ahead and kick things off. I am Russ Ratch, an AI evangelist with Weights and Biases. I'm very happy to welcome all of you today to our webinar, Build Scalable Voice AI Agents for Your Contact Center. And as I was kind of preparing for the webinar and thinking about how do I want to kick this off and what do I want to say and introduce the topic, I started to settle on something like a while back when you call your customer support line at your bank or your insurance company, if they have some kind of automated voice system, you'll be guided through some kind of prompts to get to this certain location, right? So they'll kind of direct you through press 2 to talk to billing, press 3 to file a claim. And then I thought, well, it wasn't really that long ago that I was doing something like that. So maybe I'll introduce that as a while back. And then I thought, well, I've actually probably talked to or interacted with a few systems like that, even just like very recently. And then I was going to say something like, well, until very recently, you could actually start talking to these support systems, and they'd ask you, please tell me your address, and you'd go ahead and you'd tell it your address, and it would understand that, and then it would say, if you'd like to speak to billing, say billing or something like that, which didn't seem a whole lot easier than just pressing 2. And then you kind of sit there wondering, do I need to press pound after this, or how does this all work? And then, I realized I've had interactions with a lot of systems like that just very recently and current times as well. And then finally, we've arrived at this moment where sometimes when you call these support systems, you are talking to a support agent, but it actually seems like a real person, right? Even though it's an automated system. And it actually sounds like a real person, and it's conversational, and it gets you to where you need to go, and it's able to answer your questions. And so kind of the moral of this story is that I was originally going to frame this as this technology is progressing. We're getting better at this kind of technology. And that's true. But I think the real problem is actually that there's this huge gap between all these different companies, and some of them are taking advantage of this new technology and some aren't. Some of them still have these press 2 to go to billing, while some of them are asking you how you're doing today and actually inspiring a nice conversation. And so this gap becomes a big problem, right? In this adoption of this technology, some companies are investing in this technology and some aren't. Some know how to do it and some don't. And so fortunately for everyone who hasn't taken advantage of this technology yet or started on their path towards these more conversational voice AI agents, I've got a couple of experts here today. And they'll be able to help people get started and start guiding everyone on this process towards these conversational agents that actually do very much affect performance, as we'll discuss. Before I introduce our esteemed guests, I'd like to just do a bit of housekeeping. We have a chat area, and if you could just please post your questions in the chat as we go along, that would be great. And if we can answer your questions along the way, we will. Otherwise, we'll get to them during a Q&A session at the end. We may have a couple of polls during the course of the webinar. So if you see a poll pop up on your screen, please, we'd love it if you'd participate, and that'll help guide our conversation as well and kind of let us know where everyone's at. And then finally, especially once we launch into the demo portion halfway through the webinar, please full screen. It'll make it much easier for you to see everything. And I know sometimes it's a little difficult to see people's screens within a little window. So it'll be beneficial to us all if we pop our screens open to full screen. So, all right. And with that, I'm going to introduce our great co-presenters today. Lily Clifford is co-founder and CEO of Rhyme, building cutting-edge voice AI models for enterprise customer experience applications. Rhyme has powered over 1 billion calls for call centers, Fortune 500s, and high-growth startups. Lily left her Stanford PhD in computational linguistics to start Rhyme. So thanks for joining us today, Lily.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes. And Philip Kajawa, solutions engineer at Telnix, with a wealth of experience in the telecommunications industry. And he can tell you more about Telnix, but it's a full stack platform for real-time conversational AI, combining global telephony, dedicated AI infrastructure, and full customizability under one roof, allowing you to design and deploy AI-powered agents. And as much as I wanted to memorize those entire introductions, I'll be honest, I did read a bit of that. But I'm very excited to have you both here today. Lily, I'm going to kick things off with you, if that's okay. And then Philip, I'd love to get your take on this initial question as well. And the way, to start things out, I was thinking about how AI tooling, AI platform websites, pretty much every one of them that you go to has some sort of tagline or messaging about easy to build prototypes, hard to put into production, easy to demo, difficult to deploy. And it's almost at the risk of becoming cliche or overused, but there's a reason everyone's still using this. It's because it resonates. And those of us who have tried to build this stuff know it's absolutely true. You can easily create a demo or prototype, but doing all you need to do to put this into production is incredibly difficult. And I think, everyone's talked a lot about this and why is it incredibly difficult, but this goes for all kinds of agents. And what I don't know if people have discussed so much is what is incredibly difficult when it comes to voice AI agents, like text agents, coding agents. There's a number of different types of agents, but what is more difficult or less difficult, or what are the challenges specifically in terms of voice AI? And that one's, I'm throwing that to you, Lily. Sorry, that was a long,
great.
Long question.
I think probably useful just to give some context to how we got to the present moment here in February of 2026. And to your point, right, it used to be the case that voice applications were press 2 to do this, press 3 to do that. And for all intents and purposes, they still largely are, although we are going through definitely the largest technology disruption and adoption curve in contact centers and customer experience writ large. I knew very little about that at the time that we started the company because it hadn't started yet. I was a PhD student at Stanford in the linguistics department working on model research. I have to admit, at that time, I was still training models on weights and biases. And we knew, right, that automated intelligence was going to become more A, capable, and B, prolific. And at the same time, you look at the voice model options from the hyperscalers, and what you find is a pretty pathetic, and to me, as someone who cares very deeply about the social meaning of language and indeed voice, offensive. And what I mean by that, right, is if you're building one of these voice applications, whether or not it's a phone tree, whether or not it's a voice agent, right? If you're limited to picking one of 16 voices on Google, and the way that you pick that voice is putting voices in front of your customers and finding out which one they hate the least, I find that offensive, right? And so we started Rhyme with the intention of every time you call, right, your bank, your airline, you're at the drive-through window at Taco Bell, right? Every time that happens, the voice interface with technology is compelling. And not only compelling, but impactful, right? It drives results. And so we built a recording studio actually first to solve this problem, because data is one of the most important ways. And this is to your point. I'm queuing myself up for what are the things that are unique in voice that are not present in text. The data is so incredibly important. and the way that you label that data and the models that you train are just as important. And so we built a recording studio a few blocks away from our office here in San Francisco, and have slowly but surely collected the largest proprietary data set of conversational speech. So not someone reading an audiobook or doing an ad read or a news article read, right? Like someone talking to a friend or family member. And then we started training TTS models on top of that data, text speech models on top of that data. And then we went looking, right, for people who cared about that conversational quality, as well as the capabilities that we were baking into the model. And so what do we find? We find that if you put rhyme voices in the voice agent that powers phone ordering, right, for like a business like Domino's, you're immediately seeing a 20% increase in someone finishing that order versus when they were using Microsoft TTS. And not only that, right, like we learned the capabilities that teams of enterprise developers of voice applications care about, like that extend past just like, is this a nice voice? Because if you're building TTS models for Domino's and the model can't reliably and consistently pronounce the words pizza extravaganza, right? Or you're building for Wendy's and the model can't pronounce baconator. Like this sounds like a minor problem technically to solve and a minor problem from a business perspective, but it couldn't be farther from the truth, right? And these are things that you don't surface in text. And so I encourage like everyone, you can go and like talk to like OpenAI's advanced voice mode. It's so incredibly compelling. And I challenge you to ask it to pronounce difficult words.
Well, I love the idea of your training data set, including Meetsa and some of these other terms. And that makes total sense as far as yeah, what's required and what's different from just a plain old LLM text model, and then being able
It
to
does feel
actually
plain old at this point, right? Yeah.
that. Yeah, and Philip, so I mean, you've probably worked on implementing a lot of these things and worked with customers and seen some of the pitfalls and where these things maybe work in prior to production, and then they get into production and start to fall flat. Like any stories about your experiences or information you can provide on that?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of when you're building out your AI assistant, I think the biggest pitfall is making sure that you have the infrastructure that can handle concurrency, and being able to handle latency is a very big important component of the human aspect. You have the human element and being able to have lifelike voices, but then the other pillar of that from a telling standpoint when it comes to voice AI is also latency and being able to be very responsive. If I'm having a conversation with an AI and it responds, but it takes 2 seconds to respond to a question, then it's no longer, that you're speaking to an AI assistant. You're not speaking to a human. So latency is very important, and being able to address multiple aspects of that. At Telnix, what we're trying to do is we're solving for the physics problem, right? And having all the text to speech and speech to text models hosted within a single data center. And so that's sort of the biggest challenge that we're trying to tackle is latency, because we notice in the space, if you start to interact with others in the space, it might be a little bit more latent. So latency is specifically under a high concurrency spikes. So when you're looking at contact centers that are receiving or placing thousands of calls through their contact center agents, or receiving calls to an AI assistant that's going to be eventually transferred to a contact center agent, making sure that you have a scalable infrastructure that can handle those calls, and an AI assistant can answer those calls effectively and is low latency. Audio quality degradation and transcription accuracy is very important. Making sure that you're using a speech to text model that can actually decipher exactly what's being spoken is very important. And the audio quality itself as well. Something that our partnership with Rhyme offers us is superior audio quality on the capability of being able to offer text to speech that at a higher quality and low latency capabilities is very important, because then you have the ability to now have, we have this concept garbage in, garbage out. If you can't transcribe what's being spoken accurately, then the AI assistant won't have that context. And then the third point here is obviously reliability and making sure that you have a reliable platform and everything that you have in the AI assistant, making sure that it operates within the call path itself, and that you're doing as little outbound AI or API calls, because then you are introducing network latency as well. So anything that you have should be contained within as close as physically possible to the data center that's actually receiving the phone call, or being able to create as low latency network paths.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's like some of the metrics are very objective, latency, probably audio quality, and you can and then some pronunciation isn't necessarily subjective, but a little bit more fuzzy. And then yeah, just thinking of like pronunciation as far as like this, you're talking to a real person, maybe, making sure that this doesn't sound like it's a robot. And then latency is part of that as well, because if you're talking to someone, you're not going to expect terribly long pauses. But and Lily, full disclosure, I've watched videos of yours online just because I wanted to do some research, and there was some statistic that you cited, I think, about latency, and increasing latency, and how that affects performance. I mean, that must be a big factor for you as well, as this latency. Hopefully, not putting you on the spot, but it seemed like a good stat.
No, it's true. I mean, the great thing about running these applications at scale is that you can measure the impact of each individual part of the stack, for better or worse, right? Like there have been times early in the development of our technology where, we unintentionally introduced a degradation in latency performance, and folks who are making millions of phone calls a day would come to us and say, hey, this additional 50 milliseconds of latency that's coming from your API has made our calls, I don't remember the exact stat at this point, probably like each 50 milliseconds would reduce an outbound call likelihood of succeeding by like 10%.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And like when this is like a lead qualification campaign or an appointment reminder, or whatever it might be, right? Like 10% is a lot when you're calling millions of people. So everything adds up, right? And so like attention to detail, and this is what I truly appreciate about the Telmex team, is the most important thing when it comes to shipping a reliable and impactful voice application.
And you mentioned kind of maybe like API problems or problems with people calling and latency introduced there, but in terms of building the model itself, and yes, I'm going to selfishly ask from a weights and biases platform perspective, but when you're training these models, like what metrics, to the extent you can say, are you looking at, and how are you using the platform in order to train them?
I mean, listen, like the funny thing about models nowadays is like loss curves, right? That is like the one quote unquote objective metric we have for evaluating models, is something that we look at aggressively. And I mean, I guarantee you, if I go into weights and biases, we have 15, 20 ongoing experiments right now, right? And like the tricky thing about training these models too is human perception doesn't always align with the loss curves. And so there's this interesting balance between knowing what capabilities you want the model to have, right, around like controllability of pronunciation. In many ways, that's like completely ancillary to the objective that we were solving with weights and biases, right? The objective that we're solving with weights and biases is like, how can we efficiently manage the experiments that we're running once we have chosen an architecture that has the capabilities that our customers care about? And for us, right, like that involves logging sample audio in weights and biases. That involves pipelines by which we pipe that sample audio into rating platforms for doing comparative mean opinion scores against previous versions of our models, against co-competitors, right, in the experiment cohort that we're running. And I don't know, I feel like the sky's honestly, like the great thing about ML research is because we're on the cutting edge, like the amount of things we could be doing that we're not is unbelievable, right? And so like, we do post-training using DPO and reinforcement learning and so on. And at the same time, right, like I don't think anybody knows, right? There might be, maybe Rhyme is among 3 or 4 teams in the world that knows how to do this for speech models. And to the extent that we know how to do it, we're figuring it out together, right?
Between a giant recording warehouse and all of this experiment tracking expertise, it's definitely impressive. Philip, when you're putting this stuff into production, and maybe you spoke a little bit about this earlier, but like how are you measuring like how successful is this stuff? How successful is a global rollout? Like what exactly? How can we tell if things don't seem like they're working incredibly well? Like how are you measuring the performance? Maybe immediately prior to deployment, and then also once you've deployed things.
Great question. I think from when it comes to voice AI, we start to look at things in the telecommunication space like jitter, latency, packet loss, things that could potentially impact all parts of the entire stack, from text to speech, speech to text, and being able and the large language model that's used in interpreting all the actual context and intents. So from our perspective, when we start to see high latency spikes, that's an indicator that the AI is going to be more latent and it's not going to be as performant. When we start to see more higher amount of jitter on a phone call, then we will start to see things like a robotic voice or choppiness. This is quite frequent in the space, especially with VoIP. If you don't have an optimized infrastructure to be able to handle high concurrency spikes, you're going to see a lot more jitter. Being able to see, and it will also impact transcription accuracy. So it's going to affect the entire call if you have a higher amount of jitter. So when we start to see that high jitter, high packet loss, and then high latency, those are our traditional kind of indicators. There's other things that we look at, like the mean opinion score, the MOS score itself on a phone call. We start to look at the RTCP reports of phone calls to be able to determine where the latency is kind of being introduced. Is it from Telnix or is it from the device that's actually calling in? So we have the ability to do some additional logging and being able to determine where the latency is actually being introduced. Is it from my iPhone that I'm in a concrete building, or is it being introduced from the Telnix side? So we can actually be able to differentiate all that from a network standpoint. But yes, that's sort of, from a telephony standpoint, that's sort of where AI kind of falls over.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. All right, I'm going to throw our first poll up on the screen here, if I may. And just to give us a better idea kind of the audience and where everyone is in their voice AI journey. Where are you today with voice AI agents? We talked a little bit about things progressing, but also some folks not necessarily investing or knowing exactly how to tackle this problem yet. So thanks everyone for jumping in and participating. Means you're listening. Hopefully, I haven't scared you off yet. This is okay. I mean, this is interesting. It's probably not terribly surprising that given what we've been talking about, that there's not a ton in production. Although 26% is a pretty sizable amount. I don't know, Lily. Any thoughts on the results here?
It's not surprising to me in the slightest. Again, what I said at the beginning is true. Like, we're in very early innings of what will be a very massive wave of disruption. So today, in customer experience, there's probably conservatively $700 billion of spend, and only 3% of that is in software today.
Do you see companies going out too early? Like, do you see that often? Actually, that's a question for both of you. Like, do you feel that most of the companies that are going out there, I'm sure all the ones that are using your products, you're doing it at the perfect moment, but do you see, I mean, is that a lot that they're not ready, or you just see lots of problems?
No, I don't think so. I think like early adopters in any application are going to be in revenue generating applications. So like the reason why earliest adopters of voice agents were in like QSR, fast casual at the drive-thru is because people are making money, right? It's going to take some time before people who are handling inbound customer support inquiries are feeling like there's going to be ROI, and those points of referenceability are going to come from the revenue generating applications, not the cost center side of the business. And at the same time, like I haven't personally felt like one of our customers is like harming their reputation in the slightest, right? Like I
Right.
feel like
Oh, I didn't mean to imply your
no, no, no,
customers,
no,
but
no.
just
I
in
mean,
general in this
I
space, if
mean,
you see that.
it's hard. I mean, like the thing is, like that it's worth thinking about, because it used to be the case, right? Like that every single thing that the IVR, right, the phone tree said, you wrote by hand. Some developer wrote by hand.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a risk, right? And like in saying, okay, I don't know what this voice agent is going to say before it says it. I mean, that's a huge paradigm shift, right? Like it used to be the case that all the development work happened up front, and then you put it into production, you kind of know how it's going to work. Now it's the case that like you can build a demo on Telnex in like 0 seconds. And
Right.
so if that's the case, then like all the work happens on the back end, right?
Yep. Yeah.
It,
No, I guess a lot of it is kind of taken care of for you now at this point,
yeah.
especially with something like Telmex, where you can get on, like you said, and kind of set something up relatively quickly.
I think
Um,
the really quick point I want to make is
yep.
I think that early adopters are going to be much more data rich than others. It's sort of the dot-com era in voice AI, and I think that the folks that are early adopters are going to have a lot more data in terms of what works and what doesn't. What I see typically in some of these smaller companies and people early adopters of AI is they need to do a lot more prompt engineering to be able to tailor a specific AI agent to exactly what they need. And then when they start to do, some aspect of this is trial and error when it comes to the actual output of what the LM is going to answer, and making sure that it confines to exactly what you're trying to build. So early adopters, I think, are going to be at an advantage, and I don't see in the space that a lot of folks that a lot of these companies are just going to be later down the road are going to have an advantage over others because they're going to have the data points that they need, and then be able to build much more robust and production ready AI systems.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And yes, maybe it's almost self-fulfilling prophecy. The companies that are kind of getting out the door early are the ones that are ready to go out the door early, and they're aware
Yeah.
of these platforms that can actually help them out and create something that's production ready. Um, so with that in mind, voice AI on the roadmap for a lot of companies, as the poll indicates as well. What should leaders prioritize in 2026 in terms of voice AI? If they already have it out in production, improving it. If not, how to get these systems up and running and in front of end users and customers. And Philip, I'll throw that one to you as well.
Great. I think infrastructure, making sure that when I say infrastructure, if you're building on Telnix, a lot of the heavy lifting is on us. But making sure that you have any kind of MCP calls or any kind of one thing that makes voice AI powerful is being able to have references to external data. So whether it's through tool calling or through an MCP or server orchestration that orchestrates all the tool calling, making sure that you have the infrastructure to handle concurrency and isn't going to break under load. Latency, and especially the latency for external API calls, is imperative. For as an example, I have an AI assistant that I built for an airline, and if the airline, if I call into it and it's taking 20, 30, 40, 50 seconds to do an API call to determine how many airline tickets are available or if this a specific route is available, then the person's going to hang up. The caller is going to hang up and not be able to go forward with the AI assistant, or they're going to want to speak to a human. So making sure that you have infrastructure and model innovation um, with your MCP server or any third party calls, reducing vendor sprawl, making sure that you're not going through multiple different sources and that you're trying to consolidate all your entire stack, text to speech, speech to text, and your large language model, making sure that it's all consolidated so that you can reduce the physics problem, the latency problem, and reduce jitter and other aspects of your stack as well. So you can pinpoint that. Designing reliable and scalability, and then obviously being able to build things like predictions for all speakers, and be able to look at all the different points where you can actually look into reporting and whatnot. So I think that's very important. Those are some of the things that we're looking at.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think both of you and the work you're doing, you have so much experience already. You kind of know what to look out for and how to advise. And so, Lily, if you can put on your moving into 2026 future hat, what are you thinking as far as where it's going this year, beyond, and what's important to get figured out for leaders?
I think from my perspective, the technology is ready for prime time. And at the same time, there's still many problems to solve. Right. Like, and both of those things can be true. Right. Like, I think one thing that was interesting is like, and I'm not going to name names of customers, but this is someone who's been building in the automated voice, customer facing voice for a decade. Right. Really innovative company. And they shipped the first out. This is Rhyme's first customer, actually. And they shipped the first voice agent that I know of in production about a year and a half ago. And by in production, I mean like powering tens of millions of phone calls, interactions every month. And when they first did that, the performance that they were seeing, like the likelihood of the call succeeding, was lower than that of the previous generation of technology by a substantial margin. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, like, and this is maybe counter to the narrative, but like the technology actually hasn't changed a lot in that year and a half. But now they're outperforming their previous system like leaps and bounds. They're close to 100% successful in handling these phone calls now. But it took a lot of hard work. And it took a lot of hard work because they're figuring out the design patterns of building an agent. Because building an agent is very different than building an IVR system. And building an agent for them means fine-tuning 40 different large language models and small language models and dedicating them to very particular parts of the customer journey in order to maximize for reliability and minimize latency. And I don't think a lot of people know like what the design pattern that will win out in building voice agents even is today. And so to me, what that says is if a team was able to figure out a year and a half ago how to get to close to 100% call success, and the vast majority of people are still building technology that in many ways is provably worse than what came before, then we have a long way to go, right? Even if the technology stops improving today, which it of course won't. And so I don't have a concrete prediction about 2026 in voice AI. I also know, right, that like this is just now the beginning of many of the customers that we were embedded with and building with a year and a half ago scaling. And so, you know, I can't name brands or government agencies that like when you call in 2026 you will hear Rhyme, but I've been awestruck by how many there are, right? And like that to me is the important metric, as well as how much time elapses before I hear some team is building, right, a voice agent for some large enterprise or government agency, and then when we're in production, right? Like, and that time span is decreasing over time. Yeah, so that's the metric I track.
This is like the time is now. We're ready. Like the technology's there. It's better than what
it's been ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Philip, I know you have a demo of Telnex. I think everyone would probably love to see some of this stuff in action if you're so willing to show us how this works.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go through it. I'll go ahead and share my screen here. Let me know if you can see it.
You are good.
All right, great. Yeah, we'll go through. I have an AI assistant here that's a symptom triage assistant. In the healthcare space is a very popular vertical that we're going after, and we've noticed that there's a lot of popularity for contact center solutions, especially. Uh, this specific AI assistant, what it does is it asks a series of questions to do the pre-screening of a specific patient and any questions that they may have or concerns that they have healthcare related. And it will then transfer the call to a phone number. Now, conceptually, this is going to be kind of this concept of taking a call, getting an AI assistant to do the triage, and then providing that contextual information to the AI, to the contact center agent. In this case, I'm just transferring the call to my mobile phone, but it's providing that contextual information and summarizing what was spoken on that call, and then providing that to the nurse that we're transferring to. And so this AI assistant, really quick, I'm just going to go through some of the aspects of Telnix. So we have the model that we can select here. The Quen model is hosted by Telnix, so we're obviously hosting this in the same data center that the telecommunications aspects are also hosted. So all of our telephony stack. We have a few tools. So we have a transfer tool and the hang up tool. We can build additional tooling here as well, and any knowledge base integrations. We have the prompt itself. Making sure that you're doing proper prompt engineering is a huge important aspect of building scalable AI assistants. Going into the voice tab, and this is the last tab I'll talk about. We have the voice providers for text to speech. Now, Telnix as the providers, from the list of providers, and the natural HD voices are powered by Rhyme. So all the voices here will provide you a low latency offering. If you choose any other voice from any other provider, it's going to actually double and sometimes triple your latency. So when it comes to quality and latency, which are the two biggest pillars for Telnix, selecting the Telnix voices, the natural HD voices that are powered by Rhyme, is going to be important for building AI assistants that are more human-like. So you have the text to speech. You can choose the voice that you'd like to play with. We're going to use Astra for the demo, and then we'll play around with the other voices. We have the voice speed here. You can choose the language selection here. We can do, from the transcription engine, we have DeepGram. We host DeepGram internally as well, so they give us access to a VM. So we have be able to give you low latency speech to text. We have some pillars here and some knobs that you can tweak in terms of the punctuation and how the AI assistant will interact with the prompt itself. And then there's background audio. At this stage, I think we can go ahead and we can do a quick test call. So I'll call my assistant and we will go ahead. Actually, making sure, I just want to reshare my screen. Apologies, just to make sure that I actually selected the audio. I believe I did. There we go. And I will go ahead and call my assistant now. Give it a moment here while it loads. Let me try that. Let me try refreshing.
Your symptom triage assistant for Quick Care Healthline. How can I help you today?
I have a little bit of a headache.
I'm here to help. Can you tell me a bit more about the headache? When did it start, and did it come on gradually or all at once?
Came on gradually for the last few days.
Where do you feel the headache most? Forehead, behind the eyes, temples, or the back of your head or neck?
The back of my head and neck.
How intense is the pain on a scale from 0 to 10, with 0 being no pain and 10 being the worst pain?
I would say 7.
Got it. Have you experienced any of the following? Nausea or vomiting, fever, stiff neck, or sensitivity to light or sound?
Sensitivity to light and sound and stiff neck.
Thanks for sharing that. Have you tried any remedies like drinking fluids, eating a snack, resting, or taking medications such as acetaminophen or ibuprofen? If
I've
you
done
have,
all the above.
has it helped at all?
It
Thanks for
has
letting
not.
me know. I'm going to connect you to our on-call nurse now so you can get the support you need. I'll stay with you while we connect.
Great.
One moment, please.
Hello.
Hi, this is the symptom triage assistant. I'm transferring a call to you from a patient who has been experiencing a headache for the last few days. The pain is at a 7 out of 10, located in the back of the head and neck with sensitivity to light and sound, and a stiff neck. They have tried fluids, rest, and medication with no relief. They are on the line and ready to speak with you.
Hello.
Hello?
Yes. Okay. So
Okay, so the call was transferred
successfully. So what you saw there really quick was an AI assistant that did the triage itself and then transferred the call. It provides that summarization to the person on the other line. So then in this case, it would be a nurse or a doctor that would receive that phone call, be able to get the contextual, the summarized version of what was spoken on, and then be able to then assist the patient in this particular case. So yeah, this is just a quick demo of some of the things here. We can go into additional voices that we can select. So if I choose, for example, we're going to go and do Walnut's one of my favorite. You can actually go ahead and play that voice and then use the playground here to play different voices in sample text. So I'll play this.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. This is the opening line of Charles Dickens' novel, A Tale of Two Cities.
That was great, Philip. Thank you so much for sharing that demo. One of the things I love there was a time when kind of the voice was talking, the voice agent was talking, and then you said something, and the voice agent was able to pick it up even though it was still speaking. And just from experience of having tried to code some of this stuff, and that moment of like, when does the voice agent know you've stopped talking and start picking up, right? And like, it was cool how seamlessly that happened. Again, like just like real life. So hopefully we have a ton of questions here in the chat that I'm sure that both of you might be able to answer. Lily, I know that you've been working on some stuff. I don't know whether you were interested in showing a demo, or we can just jump right into the questions and interact with the audience. Entirely up to you.
I'm happy to say that in 17 minutes, our model launched for Arcana v3 trained on weights and biases and with day 0 availability on Telnex is being announced. And so I'm happy to just pull up the announcement here and
Are we breaking news? Are we breaking news?
Breaking news in a webinar today, right now. Stand by. So today we're launching Arcana v3. I think one of the things we've learned, right, is like training a model that sounds good is one thing. Training a model that's reliable at scale is another. And so we took a lot of the learnings from Arcana v2 and made Arcana v3, how would I put it? Both 3 times faster and also way more reliable under high volume load. And so part of the reason that Telnex is such an amazing partner to work with is that they're putting the GPUs right next to the telephony core, right? So that you have ultra low latency. And at the same time, right, like we want to provide developer ergonomics for Telnex to do things like autoscale, right? Like it sounds crazy to say that there is no other text-to-speech model on the market that's self-hostable and at the same time has, right, like Orca headers for auto scaling resources on the fly. But that has been the status quo until today. I also want to say, like, we're really lucky to work with partners that help us evaluate the quality of our model in an independent fashion. And I would say there's some thought leadership that we would like to pioneer in that evaluation process. So, like, how do you know that a model is good? You can listen to it, right? Do things like multilingual code switching.
Hi, thanks for calling customer support. I can help you in multiple languages. Auf Deutsch helfe ich Ihnen gern weiter. En français, je peux vous assister immédiatement. Nihongo de mo sapoto dekimasu.
And you can listen to the emotional range of the model. That is, like, how good is it at determining how something should be read?
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Oh gosh, I'm so happy to hear that.
And at the same time, right, like, the metrics that we care about are things like this. Which of these voices would you be less likely to hang up on, right? Or which of these voices would you prefer to speak to for scheduling a doctor appointment? And so for us, I think evaluation here is really the one of the final frontiers. I'm not gonna say it's the final frontier, but it's one that particularly excites us because for the first time, right, like, there's enough scaled data to say from an engagement perspective, like, what is the better model? That to us is super exciting. And again, there's so many last mile problems to solve. Like, it's not easy training a multilingual model. Like, if anyone has built with one, they will know that performance on multilingual models is not as good as monolingual models. And at the same time, this is a solvable problem. And so I'm excited to solve for the evaluation set of problems, and I'm excited to solve for the quality set of problems. And I'm maybe in more ways excited to solve for the scalability set of problems. So again, no need for a demo, but just wanted to say, like, thanks for building alongside us. And, you know, it's always exciting on a model launch day to be doing breaking news.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. It's also, I think, the evaluation side of things, I think, is so interesting because, again, like latency, like these things you can kind of programmatically tease out and create, performance metrics and compare them across models. But some of this stuff, and for, you can tell which voice models perform better maybe by revenue is, there's greater revenue or people aren't hanging up. But a lot of this stuff about, like, do people feel more comfortable or what kind of emotions are you pulling out of the person speaking to? One of the things that's fascinating, I think it's in one of your white papers, Lily, is like people saying thank you, like being able to actually track people saying thank you to these voice agents. They feel so comfortable in the conversation. Like, do you have focus groups? Like, how are you getting information from people, like surveys, asking people to take surveys after? Like, how do you know when people like the voice agent they're talking to, other than the hard numeric metrics?
I mean, again, like, I've been surprised. These aren't metrics that I had been thinking about at the time that we started building, but they're metrics that our customers have shared with us. When it comes to internal testing, we do work with human labeler platforms that can crowdsource this kind of information. And then the difficulty just becomes in, like, how do you prepare the stimuli? How do you ask the right questions? I would say the test for us is always in production, though, right? Like, it's one thing for you to trust me and say, like, hey, we ran this survey in collaboration with our partner Rapid Data, and, like, people in the United States in this state, when they hear this voice, are more likely to stay on the call. Like, that, you can trust me. But I think the more interesting thing is when our customers come to us and say, before we put Rhyme into production, no one said thank you, right? And I didn't anticipate that as, like, a KPI that our customers maximize for.
Yeah. Do you track that kind of stuff too, Philip? Are those kind of the anecdotal stories that you've been hearing?
Yeah, absolutely. I have to agree with Lily here, right? It's having folks come to us for various different reasons and being able to offer them an AI assistant that can be more human-like, I think is a huge part of it. And I get on calls where the other day, someone thanked me for helping them build an AI assistant that was so human-like and push that AI assistant into production for them. So we get that those little stories go a long way for us, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. All right, I'm like I could ask questions of both of you all day. I selfishly have been, but we have this like huge list of questions that's piled up in the from our audience here, and want to prioritize those. So I wish we could spend more time on each of these, but maybe we can kind of try and get through some of these with a relatively quick response. I'm going to let's see. If I go to first ask here, how accomplished are your rhyme voice models in Arabic, specifically the Egyptian dialect?
I'm excited to announce that this is so corny, but like Arabic is tough, right? Like, and prototypically people are training Arabic models that speak modern standard Arabic and not the actual varieties of Arabic that people speak in, say, Egypt or in the Gulf. And so on Telnex, you'll be able to find Egyptian Arabic voices, like properly Egyptian. And that's like, in all honesty, the result of a very deep partnership between Rhyme and Telnex to deliver, again, models that represent how actual people talk. I mean, Egypt, there's 50 million Egyptian Arabic speakers in the world, right? And there is no high quality Egyptian Arabic model before today. And so, we talk about evaluation of English models. We listen to English models all the time. And like, I don't think many people, myself included, right, like realize that for all the hype and noise that's out there, like an LLM has a hard time generating text that even reads to someone who's in Egypt as sounding like Egyptian Arabic. And yep. that's the kind of last mile problem that's going to make voice AI truly global, right?
Yeah, I love we have this international audience. We have another non-English related question. Performance status of a voice agent that are non-English speaking. What is the performance status? Last year I worked on a German voice agent and it was really tasking and non-performing, I'm guessing, compared to the English speaking agent. It sounds like it's kind of a similar answer probably to what you just gave, that you're able to.
I mean, like, I'm sure the gap between English model performance and German model performance is not as large as it is between English and Arabic. So you can just imagine how hard it must be in many of the world's languages. I mean, just the other day, like, one of our competitors launched the world's best Arabic speech-to-text model. And the world's best, and this is not real time, this is like offline transcription, the world's best Arabic speech-to-text model misrecognizes 1 out of every 10 words.
Not a great stat, I guess. Here's one maybe, Philip, for you. Do you observe a change in CSAT with the implementation of voice AI agents?
We do, yes. I think it'll continuously be able to increase and be able to get more performant. And so something we definitely look at, and I do want to call out on the earlier point that when it comes to languages as well, we're increasing more and more languages with our partnership with Rhyme, and I think that when it comes to voice AI and being able to roll it out to different countries, especially from a telecommunications provider standpoint, it's very important. So because we're a global company, we have data centers all around the world. This is the partnership here is going to allow us to become and serve a lot of different countries globally in terms of the, especially our go-to-market strategy for the Asian markets and Australia, and then being able to go after countries in Europe and then in the US and Canada, of course, and then and LATAM is our next push here.
Cool.
Yep.
Thank you. Looks like we have a trio of questions here from Viswapriya. Are you focused only on English and or Spanish? I think we've answered that one probably. Any thoughts on how voice agents work for low resource languages? I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I'll bet the linguistics expert.
Yeah, well, low resource languages means just that, right? Like which languages have very little data available to train a model on. And so like that's the vast majority of the world's languages. Yeah, I feel like we've touched on this already. I think like that for what it's worth probably will change in 2026. I take back what I said about like technology being good enough. It isn't good enough, right, for low resource languages, and so I truly expect that to change.
We'll asterisk that one.
Exactly.
Little caveat. Do you use state space models?
We do not use state space models. At the end of the day, right, like the architecture is one thing, the capabilities of the model are another. Like there's a lot of promises that get made about very particular kinds of architecture, and at the same time, as a product thinker, I find it practically irrelevant. In all honesty, to the quality of the end and the end model. But as a practitioner, of course, I think like that's an interesting paradigm.
And then there's one about techniques popular to cut latency and jitter and open source tools that are reliably used. Probably in your model training, you're addressing a lot of this, I would imagine. So I don't know if there's any shout outs you want to give to open source tools that you've seen effective in this, or
we have some. I can't really recall from Talent standpoint, but we do have some tools that we can definitely reference. And if you reach out to me, I'm happy to give you a list from optimization of your MCP server, and definitely some tools that you can reference within the Telnix environment to make sure that your AI assistant is performant. Lily, go ahead. I think you had something you want to say there.
No, I was gonna say like I don't think many other folks except the people who are deeply invested in the platform, like Telnex, are measuring those kinds of things. In all honesty,
how do TCPA laws view outbound voice AI?
I think they view it as illegal largely for good reason, and like I think it's one of the reasons that like we only want to work with partners who are in compliance, and this is like a violation of our terms and service to run like unsolicited outbound calling for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, you definitely want to. At Telnix, we have a very strict KYC process to make sure that folks are I'm not going to really go into the too much depth here, but in the U.S., you need to be compliant not only from TCPA but also from the FCC standpoint. Things like robocall mitigation database, and then the number reassignment database, making sure you're scrubbing that, and then making sure you're scrubbing the national do not call list. Those are kind of three pillars that we look for amongst your call stats, making sure that your answer seizure ratio is at least 80%, because you're placing calls to people that are answering calls, not placing calls to numbers that are disconnected, and then placing calls to your average call duration. So things like making sure that the average call duration is at least a minute, if not more above that. You want something more conversational. We want something more conversational. We don't want you calling thousands of people and seeing who picks up. That's more of a telemarketing use case, and that's very much illegal in a lot of cases. So
yeah, no, it's reassuring and unsurprising to hear it's all top of mind. We're seeing demos and about how easy it is to do this stuff now. So I mean, we are already all getting blasted with this stuff. So assume that would probably be your answer, of course. Lily and Philip, how successful are agents mimicking human behavior for lengthy MCP calls? For example, to look up those airline tickets by saying, "Would you mind if I place you on a brief hold?"
Yeah, I think that we're starting to see a lot more performance in that arena. We're starting to see folks that are developing much more effective MCP servers. We're working with a lot of different partners to be able to offer that. All of the integrations that you see within the Telnix portal are done through a partner that gives us access to an MCP server. We're also working with different folks, and I can't really make the announcement yet, but we're going to be working with a lot of folks that will give us access to MCP servers in the insurance, healthcare space, and others. So more to come on that front. I think that we're starting to see more human-like behavior, and it's starting to, in a lot of cases, displace human agents. Human agents for being able to do things like receptionists and so forth. I think that with the help of what Rhyme is doing and all the work that Rhyme is doing, the voices are very low latency. The voices are much more human-like, and we're getting a lot more customer satisfaction on our platform because of it. Especially if you're starting to compare us to some of the competitors in the space, we're kind of innovating a lot more faster in the space.
Yep. Lily, anything to add on that one? Or
I think it's like the most important thing is for voice agents to be able to do things. It's one thing to have a conversation, it's another thing to actually do things, right? And so like I think that's going to be a long tail problem that everyone chases. And in the same way that like I think we've seen tools like Claude Code become extremely useful, right, to software development, like that's no different in voice agents for sure.
Cool. Makes sense. All right. I know we've gone over time here. I'm going to give Philip the opportunity to answer this one quick. If is Telnix HIPAA compliant?
We are. Yeah. We can sign a BAA. So definitely reach out to us as long as we have a commercial agreement in place. We can definitely sign a BAA.
Yep. Okay, cool. I figured that would be the answer, but good to hear and verify for the audience. I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble now for going over time. Maybe Sarah, you can just shake your head yes or no if we can answer these next couple questions. Okay, perfect. If Lily and Philip don't mind staying on, of course.
I do have to drop just because we're going to launch our model in a minute. But I really appreciate you guys putting this on. Always grateful for the collaboration between the Weights and Biases team and the Telnix team and everything you guys are doing for voice agents. And again, really appreciate it and I had a great time.
Wonderful to hear. Likewise, we always appreciate hearing that kind of stuff. Lily, thank you so much for joining. Really so much good info for the audience. Really appreciate it.
Likewise.
All right, Philip, you're stuck with me now. Time span in weeks does it take to build a production-ready conversational AI? You have some kind of estimate? Does it vary? Like, what would you tell a customer with that question?
I think that it does vary, and there's a lot of different factors when it comes to building a voice AI. I think you can go, if it's a simple prompt and it's a simple use case, then you can, like I said, you can spin up an AI assistant and be ready within half an hour, I would say. I think a lot of the work that goes into building voice AI agents is going to be within prompt engineering and making sure that you're building effective prompts and the AI assistant is giving you consistent and reliable answers in all of the times that you've given it phone calls and all the interactions that it has. So I think that it really varies, but making sure that if you're doing any third-party API calls either through an MCP server or through tool calling, that you're effectively making sure that that works. And then the second part of it is obviously prompt engineering is another part of it. So I think that's where the majority of your work should be spent is prompt engineering.
Yep. Cool. Makes sense. Here, I know there's a couple chat sections here. It looks like you've actually answered a couple questions in the other one, but we can end on this one. And maybe we discussed this a little bit already, but what evaluation metric is most often used in speech to text models? Do you have a take on that one? Lily probably would have had some
I would say in terms of accuracy and speed is really what we're looking for. Our partnership with DeepGram allows us to host their speech to text model, and it gives us low latency, and their latest Flux model is actually really great. I think that when it comes to speech to text, yes, latency is important, and then accuracy, I think, is going to be another part of it. If you go into the Telnix portal and actually evaluate any of your call examples, you have the ability to see how much latency is introduced in every part of the stack. So speech to text, text to speech, and then the LLM itself. So making sure that you're selecting a model that's appropriate for your use case. Also making sure that you have a domain-specific speech to text model. There's ones that are better for multilingual use cases, and there's ones that are only English only speech to text models. Making sure that you're selecting one like a low latency one would be English only because it has the capability of handling a single language, versus if you're doing a multilingual, it could introduce additional latency, but at the same time making sure that you have the right model and the right metrics in place.
Cool. Wow, we really have a lot more questions here. I don't want to don't know exactly if we should keep going if you have time, or if Sarah, if there's a way for us to communicate with some of these folks post facto, or what is recommended. Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot.
No worries. Sorry, which one was this? Sorry, can you repeat that?
Do you have a couple more minutes?
I do. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I don't know if now I feel like we're holding you hostage as part of the Weights and Biases webinar, more than you signed up for. Uh, Maximum concurrence inbound calls Telnex can afford. I'm doing an agent to a big energy company that has to answer as soon as a client called the Telnex number and not add in queue.
We will always answer your call. I think is the short answer. Definitely speak to us, but I think that we're in the U.S. and especially U.S. and Canada, we can scale exponentially and then be able to offer you, I want to say virtually limitless concurrency. So especially inbound concurrency. We're a carrier. We have multiple data centers and we work with the major mobile operators in these regions so that we can offer you maximum concurrency.
Cool. Yeah. No, that's good. Concurrency, inbound concurrency, not an issue. And any tips on building for restaurants? Have you worked with any restaurant customers? You have any words of wisdom?
Nothing specific to restaurants. We have worked with a few folks in the restaurant business, making sure that if you are doing different AI assistants, making sure that there's something called handoff, making sure that you have different AI assistants that you're building, making sure that your prompt is not too large. If your prompt is large, then you're breaking it off into a different AI assistant, and then using handoff to have a cohesive conversation on one phone number that's assigned to a specific AI assistant, and then handing off. But restaurant business, no, I don't have anything specific. Just making sure the usual, making sure that you have MCP calls for things like number for ordering off of menu. If you do support that, making sure that you're handing off. If you do have a restaurant that supports SIP, then you can hand off to their switch itself through a transfer a tool. If not, you can just transfer through a phone number, and then that works fine too. But again, just prompt engineering I think is important here.
Cool. Yeah. All right. So I'm seeing that we will be able to reach out and respond to the additional questions that are here. So I will hold you no longer, Philip. But thank you so much. Super interesting conversation. Like I said, I could just probably talk to you one-on-one for an hour and pester you with a bunch of questions. But thank you so much for lending us your expertise for 67 minutes here and joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Russ. Take care.
All right. Thank you, everyone.